Western fairy tales are like, and they lived happily ever after. The end. And then the Philippine version of it is like, and they were so ugly they were never heard of ever again. What? And the children became so good that their parents threw away their whips. Let me read this again. Ta-da! And that was the origin of bananas. Hello, welcome. I'm Marianne, and today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. Normally on this channel I paint and I tell you about the painting, but I read that literacy rates have been dropping in Canada, and in an effort to contribute to bringing that back up, we're going to be doing some reading today. I have a painting here that I am working on for very special reasons that I will not reveal just yet. But you can take an educated guess what you think the painting will be used for. Now, you can be like any other regular person and go and get like a Kindle or an audiobook subscription or whatever, but that's just not as fun as having someone read the book to you. You know, like the good old Storytime days when adults would read you a bedtime story, something like that. Nowadays, the kind of genre of books that I like to read are the disgustingly sweet and somewhat questionable type of books, but we can discuss that another time. Now, I have never read this book before. We're not going to read the entire thing today. We're just going to do a couple of stories. But since it is my first time, I thought it would be fun for me to react to it. Because I know that some myths, legends, and folktales, they do get a little bit crazy, especially when taken from a different cultural perspective. Some of these stories are a little older, so just bear that in mind while I read these today. So please grab some snacks, grab something to eat and drink, and get cozy because it's story time. This book is specifically the Myths, Legends, and Folktales of the Philippines. I am Filipino, but I grew up in Canada, so I didn't really hear too many of these growing up, but that's what we're going to take a look at today. Philippine Myths, Legends, and Folktales by Maximo Ramos. And that is this dude. This guy. Right here. Thank you, sir. Preface. The folklore material put together in this book is from all over the Philippines. Some are from the Ilocos region and the Cordilleras in the Christian and pagan north. Many are from the Christian provinces in the rest of Luzon and the Visayan Islands. The others are from Mindanao and the Sulu group in the pagan and Muslim south. Represented here are the ethnic groups of the plains and coastal areas, of the foothills and mountains, of the swamps and rainforests. They were originally told in Bicol, Bontoc, Ifugao, Iloco, Kalinga, Maranao, Pampango, Tagalog, Tausug, Tinguian, Visayan, and other Philippine vernaculars. An attempt was made to exclude from this collection any material that showed borrowings from the West. So anything that had to do, anything that stemmed from Western stories, they tried to keep it out. But the attempt may not have fully succeeded, for in matters of folklore, one cannot always tell what is Western and what is Eastern. The East and the West have been blending nicely in the Philippines ever since Magellan discovered the country for the white man in 1521. I don't know what they mean by blending nicely, but they definitely have been blending. I will say that. I don't know, blending nicely? Arguable. Okay. Moreover, most folklorists think that Asia, to which the Philippines geographically belongs, was the early home of many of folktales of Europe and America. I can see that because the Philippines has some spiritual creature, some mystical stuff happening there all the time. That much, I know. Folklore scholars define myths as narratives about the beginnings of the world, legends as narrative accounts of origins that occurred somewhat later than what happened in myths, and folk tales as stories about the daily lives of the common folk of today or in the recent past. It is hoped that the myths, legends, and folktales included in this book will help the reader get acquainted with the cultural past of the Philippines, and it is hoped that they will fire the reader's imagination as all good narratives, no matter where they originated, should do. So I guess we're gonna see if this is gonna fire up my imagination, all right? To all of my ancestors, they're probably really happy that I'm reading this book. Okay, let's read the very first one. The very first one says, "When the world was young." And this is the illustration. Tiny bit unsettling, I will say. It seems like it's a story about like the origins of the world, minus the religious or biblical perspective on it. How people were created. A long time ago, according to the Bagobos of southern Mindanao, there was not a single man or woman in the whole wide world. There lived only Tuglay and Tuglibon, the two mighty beings who had created the world. One day, Tuglay spoke to Tuglibon and said, "Wife, perhaps it would be better if there were people in the world." "It would be far better indeed," replied Tuglibon. "There should be people who will enjoy the beautiful new world we have made. Let us create a man and a woman who will love the blue sky and the wide sea. Let us create people who will love the flowers in the valleys and the clouds on the mountains." So, Tuglay took some cornmeal in his hands, moistened it, and shaped it into human figures. Then he covered the figures with scales and gave them life. So we're just made out of corn. Okay. When the creatures stood up, however, they looked very wooden, for Tuglay had forgotten to make joints in their bones. Their arms and legs were very stiff, and they often stumbled to the ground when they walked. Moreover, their eyes were very small, their ears were half-ridden, and their noses could hardly be seen. But worst of all, they could not hold anything with their stiff fingers, and because their bodies were covered in scales, they looked more like reptiles than human beings. By the way, I think this might be Tagalog translated into English, so some of the things might not translate very well, but this is definitely, it's translating. It's translating. "I am not pleased with the people you made," said Tuglibon. "Better try again." Mood. But Tuglay felt satisfied with them. "I think they will do," he said. The more Tuglibon looked at them, however, the more she disliked them. "How will the world look when it's full of these ugly creatures?" she said. "I want people who can move about gracefully and who are not covered with scales as if they were serpents." "These two are good enough for me," Tuglay replied coldly. "I will not change them." They're fighting! Obviously, she has much different standards, which, good for her. Yeah, good for her. And good for him for, standing by his own creations. But, this is supposed to be a team effort, Tuglibon spoke no more about the matter, but she felt very uneasy thinking of the ill-shaped creatures. At last, when she could think of no better thing to do, she threw a handful of cornmeal into her husband's eyes. "Now he will not see me work," she told herself. Damn. Quickly, she moistened the rest of the cornmeal and shaped it into human figures. She made joints in their bones. She gave them bright eyes for seeing, well-shaped ears for hearing, larger noses for smelling, and pretty mouths for eating and speaking. She gave them smooth skins for feeling, putting scales only at the tips of their toes and fingers. Finally, after she had given them each a big heart for loving, she put life into them. Then she made them stand up, and they were beautiful to look at. So Tuglibon was like, "I'm just gonna do it myself. I'm gonna make this happen by myself." And that's exactly what she did. When her work was finished, Tuglibon washed the cornmeal out of Tuglay's eyes. Tuglay was very angry for what she had done to him, but upon seeing the man and woman, he was convinced that they were indeed better looking than those he had made. I am glad you made them, he said. They and their children will be the rulers of the world. They will love only the beautiful and shun the ugly, Tuglibon said. Excuse me? What? Okay. They will enjoy the songs of the birds and they will wash their bodies in the cool springs and rivers. They will love each other, and watching the sun by day and the moon and stars by night, they will love us who created them. So saying, Tuglay and Tuglibon smiled at the first man and woman who became the ancestors of the people now living on earth. As for the scaly creatures that Tuglay made, nothing more was heard of them. Wow, what a start. What I gathered from that is that the creator was the woman, the creator of humans was a woman, and the creator of reptiles and animals was a man. They had the same goal, but they just had a different vision, I guess, different execution. So I don't know about nothing more being... I'm really curious to know how this actually reads in Tagalog. I think it sounds a bit harsh when it's in English. But in Tagalog, it's probably just like, oh yeah, and then they made this, and yeah, and then they had a good time. So, interesting. Let me know what you think of that. Hello, this is Editing Marianne. I realize I didn't do this while I was doing the reading, but I want to... a reading from the Gospel of Marianne Valdez. The first story is giving me like Bible camp vibes. Yeah. 6 out of 10. 6 out of 10 for this one. Okay, that is actually kind of funny. Western fairy tales are like, and they lived happily ever after. The end. And then the Philippine version of it is like, and they were so ugly they were never heard of ever again. What? I honestly love this. I love this so far. It's like so savage. So savage. Oh, okay, here. I flipped a couple pages ahead and there's a story about a crow. So let's read this one. It's called The Coleto and the Crow. If you want to know why the crow is black and why the coleto has no feathers on top of his head, this Tagalog legend will tell you. I don't know what a coleto is, but I guess it's another type of bird. Okay. The coleto and the crow. Once upon a time, the crow was a white bird. The coleto, a bird as small as a maya, was as black as he is today, but he was not bald-headed then. There was a thick crest of feathers on top of his head. One cool day, the crow was up in a tree practicing his voice. Whack, 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 he said. Along came the coleto and said in his musical voice, "What a sweet song you have. I wish I were deaf, then I would not hear your voice." So this other bird just comes along and it's like, you suck at singing.
You're ugly, you're disgusting, I'm going to kill you, give me $200.
Okay. This remark annoyed the crow, for he knew that his voice was unpleasant and that he needed much singing practice. "If my voice is not sweet," said he, "neither am I as tiny as you are." "It's true that I'm tiny," said the coleto, suddenly getting angry because he was very sensitive about his size. "Yet, I can fly much higher than any other bird in the whole world. I can outfly the eagle himself." They're beefing. "You must be mad to say that," said the crow. "How can you race the king of the birds? You cannot even race me." Get him. The coleto laughed scornfully. "Would you like to have a test of wings with me?" said he. "Would you like to fly a race? Better go home, son, replied the crow. Go home and eat more rice, drink more water, and breathe in more air. Wait till your wings are wider before you challenge me to a flying race. Okay, pause for a second. Pause. I love this. They're just going at it. They're like, you can't even handle me. You need to go home and grow up, little boy. That's what you have to do. If you want to match up against me, you got some growing to do. Oh my gosh. Go, crow. You forget that the smallest pepper is the hottest, said the Coleto. In the same way, a person's ability cannot be told by his size. You are no doubt bigger than I, but you are heavier and slower too. If you want to fly a race, then let's fly a race and stop this talk, said the crow crossly. Would you like the race to begin now? Yes. The Coleto counted 3 and the race was on. Up and up they flew side by side, racing each other until they came to a dark cloud and lost sight of each other. So they flew on separately. At last, the Coleto had flown so high that he knocked his head against the floor of the sky, and the skin on top of his head was scraped off. So that's why he's bald. He bumped his head in the heavens. On the other hand, the crow flew so near to the sun that his white feathers were burned. They were both very much frightened by the experience, and when they returned to earth, they forgot all about the race. But down to this day, the Coleto has no feathers on top of his head, and the crow's feathers are completely black. I must say, we're only 2 stories in, and this book is full of bangers, I must say. That story is literally the consequences of having an ego. Consequences. You know, they could have just accepted their differences and they could have just become friends. Could have just accepted that, you know, hey, they are bigger and a different type of bird and they sound a little bit different. And I am a small, tinier bird. I may be bald on my head, but we are both different and we are both birds. And they could have just been friends. But no, they decided to go and bump their heads up in the clouds. And one of them almost got incinerated. You see? You see. Hello, editing Marianne is back. I like the Coleto and the crow a little bit better. I've never seen a Coleto before, but when I searched it up, it was like jump scare, naked face. I've never seen a bird with a naked face before, but yeah, that gave me a little bit more excitement. So I would say 7 out of 10. 7 out of 10 for Coleto and the crow. Now, back to the Gospel of Marianne Folktales. I would just like to reiterate, okay? I am reading these because I'm genuinely curious. I just want to see. I am also aware that a lot of these may also be not the most inclusive or like politically correct. I mean, if these are pretty old stories, it would make sense that they stick to traditional gender roles and gender norms, and so I'll just leave it at that. But they are just myths and legends for a reason. There's a story, it's called The Origin of Bananas. It says, "Would you like to know how bananas came into the world? Then stop pulling one another's hair and I shall tell you." Okay, I think that might just be something that translated a bit weird. Once in Lanao, there was a kingdom of green fields, clear streams, and blue hills. A princess ruled the beautiful kingdom, and she was so kind, so beautiful, and so wise that her subjects did everything they could do to make her happy. Good for her. "Let us raise enough food in our fields," said the men, "then our queen will be happy. Let us keep our towns clean and our homes neat," said the women, "then our queen will feel proud of us all. Let us be obedient and good," said the children. "Then the queen and our parents will always love us." Okay. And you may not believe it, but what they promised to do, they did. The men burned down the cockpits and gambling houses and worked on their farms all day. The women kept their homes as clean and shiny as your uncle's bald head. How do you know my uncle's bald? How do you know that? Tito Ipet, don't listen to them. And the children became so good that their parents threw away their whips. Okay, hold on. Let me read this again. And the children became so good that their parents threw away their whips, and their teachers thought less of how to make them learn their lessons and more of what lessons to teach them. Yeah! Thought less of how to make them learn their lessons and more of what lessons to teach them. Yes, because to educate children, you need to create a safe environment for them to learn these lessons. Teaching lessons through violence and abuse is not the right way to teach. And it's not good for them either. That's not teaching them, that's just giving them trauma. Okay? So far, I can see this princess was onto something. This princess was just so good that the entire town wanted to improve themselves. And I'm glad, okay? We are updating outdated teaching methods. But one person in the kingdom was not at all happy. She was a wicked cousin of the queen's. She wanted to rule in place of the queen and thought of ways to rob the queen of her throne. The years went by and the queen ruled alone. From many foreign lands, kings and princes came begging her for her love. But the queen said, "If I take one of you, the others will be angry. Then there will be war. I would rather remain single and have peace in my kingdom than take a husband and cause trouble." Good for her. She's thinking 10 steps ahead. These princes, these kings and princes, they're like, I want a wife. But the queen, she's like, I want peace in the world, in the kingdom. Now, the wicked cousin of the queen's secretly loved one of the suitors. She thought of a plan and took this suitor aside. Then she whispered in his ear, "Why do you waste time? My cousin the queen loves you, but she cannot accept your love because she is afraid that if she does, the other suitors will make war on her kingdom. Bring your army here, therefore, and slay your rivals and the queen's guards. Then enter the city, and the queen and her kingdom will be yours." Yeah, the wicked cousin doesn't have a very good game plan either. Her plan is just go and kill them. Like, what did we just discuss? We discussed that violence was not the answer. The suitor believed her and left for his native land. Then he gathered his his soldiers that were the most able, not ableist. Why did they put that? Why did they put that word there? I'm gonna cut that word out. Then he gathered his soldiers and hurried back to the queen's realm. In the meantime, a brightly colored magic bird, the Nori, had heard the wicked woman plotting with the suitor. The Nori flew to the queen's window, fluttered its wings, and said, "Listen, O queen, I wish to speak with you." "Speak on," replied the queen. "Know that one of your suitors plans to kill his rivals and your guards. He plans to take you by force and marry you. But that is not the end of the matter. Your cousin wants your crown and will not rest until she has slain you and won your husband's love." Having spoken, the magic bird flew away, and the queen was greatly troubled. "Alas," she sighed, "I have tried to rule my kingdom wisely and well. I have tried to please my people the best way I can, but my own cousin wants to betray me." Her heart was heavy with sorrow. She wept bitterly as though her heart would break, but she showed her grief to no one. When night came, she asked everyone in the palace, the servants, the courtiers, and the guards, to go outside the palace walls. The people wondered why the queen made such a strange request, but they thought she must have good reasons because she had never done anything unwise before. When they were gone, the queen locked herself up in her chamber and set the room on fire. The fire quickly spread into the other rooms. The people saw the flames and tried to rush in to put out the fire, but the queen had locked the palace gates too, and with the entire palace she perished in the flames. people mourned deeply over the death of their queen and built a beautiful fence around her ashes. "We must honor her who loved us so well," they said. One morning, not long after, a strange plant appeared on the pile of ashes. It had long, wide leaves and a straight, white trunk. There were no thorns on the trunk of the tree, and it fluttered its leaves gracefully in the wind. The plant came to be known as the banana. "It is our queen," said the people to one another. "She has come to life again." I have something to say about this, but let's finish this first. The banana plant grew, and in time a red heart-shaped flower came out of its bosom. Slender fruit came from the flower. The fruit ripened, and the people tasting it said, "It is delicious. It is our queen's gift to us." So they ate the fruit, and all agreed that their queen's gift was as sweet as she had always been. As for the queen's wicked cousin, God turned her into a monkey. She found the queen's gift very delicious, and she has liked the banana more than any other fruit. So the queen was literally like, "I would rather die than marry any of you and cause harm to my kingdom. So I will off myself. I will set myself aflame." You know what? The way that the banana plant grew out of the ashes, it might have just been like she might have eaten something. She might have just eaten something before she died, and then it just grew from the ashes. I mean, it is folklore. Why am I trying to look for sense in this? It's not supposed to. It's just Okay. So every time I think I know where the story is going, I just don't. It just goes sideways. Editing Marianne here again. It seems like Marianne of the past, present, and future are all present and participating in today's discussion of this book. For the origin of bananas, I give it maybe an 8 out of 10. I'd say it was kind of crazy. I didn't expect it to take the turns that it did. The entire time I was questioning, what does this have to do with bananas? And I feel like it is such... Is it just me? Because I know it's not just a Filipino culture thing, but in other cultures, like for example, if a butterfly flies by and it lands on you, someone's like, "Oh, that's your grandpa." Or like a dragonfly, like, "Oh, that's your late husband coming by to say hello." I've heard of that with like live animals that you just don't see as often, but bananas? You hear about bananas? So every time I see a banana, you're gonna be like, "Yes, my queen." But wouldn't that be cannibalism? Would that still count as cannibalism? Because you know what? I reduce my score of this one to a 7 out of 10 because this one kind of pissed me off. I know I'm not supposed to find sense in any of these stories, but like I'm just kind of pissed off. Aren't you pissed off? Yeah, see. Okay. Back. Ta-da! And that was the origin of bananas. So every time I eat a banana now, I will think of the queen. But then who would take her place as queen? I don't know. I don't want to think too hard about this. You know what? I'm not going to try and look for any sense in this because it's not supposed to. It's not supposed to make any logical sense, okay? I'll just accept it. I think those stories will do it for me today. My favorite was the Coleto and the Crow and the origin of bananas. Those are my favorite. There's still quite a few other stories in here, but for the sake of the length of this video, I only kept it to those few. Let me know what you thought. But until next time, I hope you enjoyed my accompanied reading of the Philippine Myths, Legends, and Folktales while I painted. As always, thank you for being here. Until next time, I will continue working on my painting. It is quite a large painting, so if I haven't finished it in this video, hopefully I can finish it in the next one. And maybe we'll have another story to accompany that one. We'll see. Anyways, thank you for being here, and I'll see you next time.